Gina Acosta, editor-in-chief of Progressive Grocer, and I am super excited to be joined today by Adam Gauer, co-founder and chief operating officer of Plus Brand Industries. He's going to talk about beverage trends, about sustainability, and also about entrepreneurship. Some really, really cool thoughts about that. So, I think we all know that all these trends have come up in the past couple of years. Related to health and wellness, and many things across grocery are causing consumers to sort of take a second look at their beverage choices. So consumers are also looking to grocers and manufacturers to take the lead on health and wellness and sustainability. So Adam is the perfect person to shed light on what's going on with these trends. He co-founded Plus Brand Industries in 2019. To develop products and technologies that meaningfully improve the day-to-day well-being of health-conscious yet busy people through a focus on sustainable and easy to implement solutions. So Adam, welcome.
Thank you, Gina. So excited to be here. Always enjoy jumping on with you.
Excellent. So the last time I spoke to Chad Willis, who's your other co-founder, right? And correct. I asked him about the vision behind Plus Brand and your products. So I cannot wait for you to answer this question. What has your company been up to since then, Adam? It's been a lot. You had a great opportunity. That last conversation you had with Chad was kind of a fun one to be able to introduce what we're all about and where it all started. And since then, I'm not sure how many months it's been since then, but there's been a lot happening, a lot of growth, which has been really, really exciting. It's definitely kept us on our heels. We've had everything from implementing new warehousing. At the time when you first spoke to Chad, we were kind of just getting a lot of that stuff off the ground. And now we've been able to establish warehouses on both the West Coast and the East Coast, which is really playing a big role in creating efficient logistics, which is great. And they've been amazing. They do everything for us from fulfillment of various e-commerce orders to plugging into different platforms that we have the products on. To the B2B side, which we've launched since then. We've been able to start working with some small to medium-sized businesses that we fulfill directly, but also jumping into getting new distributors onboarded. And we've actually got 5 recent, fairly large DSD distributors that we've been able to start getting onboarded, which has been great because as a company that is growing very quickly, we obviously can't be everywhere and setting up displays in the different stores, but that is a big component of what is so needed with a new product and a new technology like this. So we've been able to connect with some great DSDs that we partner with to do that for us in the different stores that they service, which has been great. No sense reinventing the wheel when there's great companies out there that are doing that end of things and doing it very well. We've been able to get Amazon set up, get our storefront and our FBA set up so that it's Amazon obviously being they are the largest platform for online e-commerce now for people to grab just everything from water to electronics to all these things. And it's really the first place a lot of people go. So to be available there with one-day shipping that's taken care of by Amazon really allows us to leverage the trust that larger platforms like that have built. And tag that onto our brand. So it's been great doing that. We've had a lot of reviews start coming in with feedback from people that really is validating in a lot of ways what we hoped All Scratch in this product would be to them, which has been great. And we've done the same with Walmart, and Walmart's been doing a great job recently. Anybody who's been paying attention to them in the news, they're really reinventing themselves on the e-commerce and fulfillment side. Totally. A lot of really cutting edge technology there that's been great to be able to partner with again as well. And some event sponsorships too. We've been able to get to the point where we can now with product being fulfilled and going out to different stores, we can start to get out there and send teams out there. And one of them actually is in November is the Top Women in Grocery, which we're very excited to be a part of, and we'll be the exclusive water sponsor there. So just really, it's busy. But it's been really an exercise in the fun side of the business. We put so much work into all this groundwork, and now, as busy as it is, it's just so much fun to be involved in these things that are propelling the brand forward so quickly. And we actually I'll kind of finish this question with just kind of a funny conversation that we had with one of our lawyers the other day, where we were talking.
Funny conversation with a lawyer. I don't know.
I know it sounds like an oxymoron, because oftentimes they're the opposite of funny.
Right.
But he actually had a really funny comment that gave us kind of pause to reflect and on sort of where we've come now. And we've worked with him for a number of years, so he tends to be quite frank, as you need your lawyer to be in most situations. But he said, listen, the most amazing part of this is that you guys are just two schmucks with no experience in this industry who took an idea and made it a success. And we kind of laughed at it at first, but we thought, you know what, like, we don't want to just simply jump over the fact that, yeah, we're not people from this industry. We weren't involved in massive water companies or food and beverage companies. We just had this idea that you talked about with Chad on the last conversation, and just kept going at it. And that's not really supposed to happen anymore. It's supposed to be established people with experience, with a lot of money behind an idea. And that's how these new big companies are supposed to grow. So it really is cool. And we'll touch on this maybe a little bit later as well. I think it can be a really inspirational building block for a lot of people out there trying to do the same, because it is definitely still possible, but lots happening, Gina.
Tremendous story. It really is a tremendous story, your story. So congratulations.
Thank
you.
Okay,
so whenever I hear your product mentioned, there's always a reference somewhere in there about, bottle confusion. So can you unpack what that means for everyone listening and watching today?
Yeah. So it's funny because, and actually Progressive Grocer plays a huge role in this. When bottle confusion is described to people, whether it's just me out having a conversation with someone holding a bottle, talking to them about it, or the advertising that we do to connect with people in the industry, the retailers, the distributors, like with Progressive Grocer, we've really focused our messaging. We've tried to boil it down and keep it really simple so that it's easy to understand, focused around that term of bottle confusion. Because what we found really early on is that it's not necessarily something people pinpoint up until now anyways, when they're walking around going about day-to-day life, because it's kind of something that they've almost accepted as a necessary evil when it comes to beverages.
Right.
There's been no real meaningful progression there. So it was kind of like, hey, this is how it is. And we don't really, it's not something we talk about or that kind of thing. And so when we describe it to people and we say, we use the term bottle confusion, and we describe that scenario where you're in any type of a social setting, whether it's just friends and family gathered at a house or a massive big sporting event that you're together at, oftentimes beverages are similar, whether it's an alcoholic beverage or a water or a soda or something like that. You're generally buying amounts of product that are all the same product, and everybody's drinking the same thing. And so right away, when you mention that and you go, well, you know how it is when you put it down and you turn around and say something to somebody for 2 seconds and turn back, and there's one or two other of the same bottles put down there and you're not sure which one is yours. So it's been really cool to see how quickly people identify with it and go, yeah. It's not even like that happened to me once. It's like that happened to me 5 times last week. And so all we've really done is sort of taken the term bottle confusion, married it with this description that kind of brings it front of mind and allows people to go, yeah, that happened to me. And now as we're bringing more and more awareness to that through great partners like Progressive, which we were working with you guys before we were even fulfilling any orders, because we realized that it takes a while for people to understand that there's a need for something or to frame that need. And so we spent a lot of months with you guys just hammering bottle confusion. Bottle confusion is real, but it doesn't have to be a problem. All those types of messages that got people really thinking and created the awareness of, yeah, you know what, this is an issue. And now we're just stepping right in and presenting that solution. And I know we've had a conversation about this before, but one of the really cool / really scary moments for us was a Heineken commercial that we had talked about that came out about a year ago now, where they had this commercial that my partner Chad forwarded over to me. And at first I was watching it and I thought, oh no, what's happening here? What are they about to introduce? And it was a commercial where it was basically 1 minute showing bottle confusion. Very few words spoken in the picture, in the commercial, because you rarely need to use words to communicate this type of experience to people. And it's guys walking in left, right, and center to a house party, high-fiving their friends, dropping cases of Heineken off on the table and putting them down in different places, and confused and reaching to grab it, pulling back and not sure if it's theirs. And at the end of the commercial, it was simply just creating awareness that bottle confusion exists. And it basically said, be careful out there, keep your drinks apart, socialize responsibly. And there was no solution that was mentioned there. But it was really cool because it was a very mainstream visual that was saying to people and identifying with the need that people have for a solution like this. And at the time, it was just, well, be careful out there. But now what's really exciting is that we're introducing a meaningful solution to a problem that has existed for a long time.
Right. So it was a common problem, for so long. And, now someone is addressing it in a meaningful way, right?
Exactly. And that was the whole conversation you had with Chad, where he kind of described that first night when he was hanging out with family and realized it was a problem. So yeah, that was the genesis, and it's been cool to see people identify with that.
So how does Agua Plus specifically eliminate bottle confusion?
Yeah, so what we've used Agua Plus as, we had originally actually launched Agua Plus just over about 2.5 years ago. And we were selling it just as the alkaline bottled water. There was no all scratch at the time. And we were focused just on a great tasting water, an alkaline water with great packaging, nice point of sale displays that people would see, it would jump out at them. And we were having success with that because it jumped out at people. The red is attractive and it's just clean and nice.
Right.
But when this happened with Chad, that story that you talked about, we really sat back and took pause and said, you know what? There's something here that is really, really potentially meaningful. And we didn't necessarily know what or how at the time, but we decided, you know what, we're going to put this on pause because this could be a game changer. And so we went to work for the past 2 years developing this all scratch technology, which is our solution to bottle confusion that has been adapted on our Agua Plus product. And so what it is ultimately at the end of the day is all scratch technology is a unique ink formulation and a printing process that allows us to create a scratch area like we have on our Agua Plus bottle, where someone can just scratch either their name or initials or a picture directly on the bottle to create that easily identifiable visual that this is your bottle, and it takes the guesswork out and boosts the confidence and solves the issue of bottle confusion, which results in some of the problems that we'll kind of talk about in a minute. But essentially we went through that process of 2 years of developing this technology that initially people told us it can't be done. If it could be done, why wouldn't it be done? It would exist already. And so we dug deeper and deeper and realized that the times it had been tried in certain scenarios before, the problem is the situations in which the majority of beverages find themselves, whether it's outside in sun or heat or in transport, or whether it's in a fridge and it's cold, or there's condensation when you take it out of a fridge or a cooler, or it's sitting in ice in a cooler. And previous iterations couldn't deal with those scenarios that beverages found themselves. Water would dissolve the scratch, or you'd touch it and the scratch would come off, or condensation would dissolve the scratch. So we really worked with some amazing people in the industry, and it took a period of time. But when we did it, we realized nothing like this exists. And we were able to secure the IP in a lot of really, really exciting ways that have application in just a wide array of different substrates, like bottle types, plastic, aluminum cans, glass, all these different kinds of things, where it has application actually well beyond just what we're doing with bottled water. And that's, again, a funny thing is, even through a lot of the advertising and the partnerships we've had with Progressive Grocer, we've had some really iconic brands that have come to us, not because they sell water, but because they saw the technology that we were mentioning. And they said, how can this work with what we're doing? And we said, well, as a matter of fact, we've tested it, and yeah, we can do this and we can do that. So it wasn't even something we were advertising or putting out there, but thanks to creating the awareness through companies like Progressive, these guys were coming to us. And I mean, we it's not something we can talk about too much right now because we're in the process of discussions with these companies, but like iconic big brands that are just, again, for us, it's so validating because they're coming to us going, this is amazing, this is a problem, how do we adapt it? So that's kind of what All Scratch is about and how we adapted it to Agua Plus in order to create that solution for Agua Plus. And so while we will utilize it in a licensing format with brands in other spaces, we will always retain it for ourselves within the water space because it's a huge part of our USP or our unique selling proposition. And yeah, it's a great product. It's alkaline. It tastes great. It looks good. But it's like we say in a lot of the stuff we do with you guys, it's more than a water, it's a solution. And that's really what we're saying to people is, hey, this is a great product, but it is a massive solution to a problem that we all deal with.
But it's a really great product. I mean, the water tastes
I appreciate that.
Good. So good. It's delicious. And I buy alkaline water all the time and I know like what they all taste like, and your water tastes amazing.
Isn't it amazing how different waters can have such different tastes? It's not something you think about a lot.
Nope. I mean, maybe I just have like a sensitive palate or whatever, but I get, I know which ones taste like what, which ones are more sort of like, on the whatever. I don't know what the spectrum is for, taste, like acidity versus alkalinity or whatever, but your water.
It is an interesting thing that you mentioned because there is a formulation and strategy that goes behind that as well. Right. And like you say, not everybody gets it in terms of the broad consensus of what will ultimately taste good. And we see you're definitely not alone because a lot of the reviews we see on Amazon or different places actually specifically mention that they really appreciate the taste of it, which is cool. I mean, at the end of the day, we get most excited about the reviews we see on the All Scratch side. And we had one just the other day. The most recent one was someone who basically said, brilliant, like my kids love it. It's solving a problem that we've had for a long time and all this validation, but oftentimes the taste is in there too, which is really cool.
Yeah, agreed. So, okay. So the idea, the technology, all of that is really about waste, right? So how does, eliminating bottle confusion reduce waste?
Yeah. So that was kind of the genesis of Chad's whole story, and what led to the origination of this was all those bottles left around that had a quarter drank out of them or half drank out of them, and they were left. And what do you do with them? You got to throw them away the next morning. And so that was originally how the idea came about. And at the end of the day, there's two types of waste that are created as a result of bottle confusion. You've got the packaging, obviously, and that's probably the first thing most people think about is all these bottles and
plastic.
And you're going through more than you need to and that sort of thing as a result of confusion, not knowing which one is yours. The natural inclination is, well, you're not going to guess, you're going to just grab another one and you're going to leave the other one or throw it out or whatever. So it first and foremost was about the packaging and thinking, okay, well, listen, at the end of the day, people are drinking bottled water. And yes, we're all working to progress. And with our product, the water we do make, the bottles we do make, they are 100% recycled plastic, which well exceeds the industry standard. They're kind of gunning for 30%. So what does get fully used up, we're trying to minimize the impact of that as much as possible. And again, it sounds funny to talk about things like sustainability and bottled water a lot of people might think it's an oxymoron, but at the end of the day, these products do exist and they're purchased by the billions. Yes. So what we need to do is we just need responsible companies to accept that that's the case, but take responsibility to continue to progress it and work towards something that is better in the future. And that's really what we're trying to do. So it's that packaging waste, but then it's also the product as well. Because at the end of the day, here in North America in particular, we often take for granted. Think about sitting at the dinner table and the food that gets cleared at a restaurant and that doesn't get eaten. It's the same with these beverage products where, yeah, it's the packaging, but this food is important too. These resources that we're using are also important. So how can we minimize the waste on that side of things as well? And by reducing and eliminating confusion, well, now you're not, I'm not sure which one's mine, I'm going to go grab a new one. You're finishing that one that you took out, and now you're less likely to grab a second, or if that's a second, a third, that sort of thing. And so now we're also conserving the resources that go into the product itself, which is also incredibly important. And we've got a really cool thing that anybody can check out on our website too, as it relates to both the waste side of things and the confusion side of things. Are some really cool white papers that we've put together over there that actually dive into this whole situation of really what is even the subconscious genesis of what causes us to do these type of things. And it's really around when things are unclear. Even think of recycling. It's when things aren't marked well. Even if you're somewhere, say you're at an event where there's 4 different types of bins, if it's confusing what goes in where, you kind of throw it in any one, or you throw it in the garbage one. Like, that's just right or wrong. That's the natural inclination, is where there is confusion, excess waste will exist. Right. So that white paper is really cool in terms of diving into what it is that causes that, and how products and solutions like this can really eliminate that confusion or substantially reduce that confusion in order to reduce the waste that comes along with it.
I never really thought about, all that wasted water. I mean, you read the news and there's so much drought in the world right now. And that is a huge, huge issue as well. It's not just the packaging, it's also the resource.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're consciously trying to be mindful of both. And that's, at the end of the day, even from the licensing perspective and other companies looking to utilize it, it's for the same reasons. Right. You can, by being able to implement this on lunch products or deli meats and other different types of beverages, you're eliminating that waste. You're eliminating the likelihood that something just gets left due to confusion. And not only is it the packaging, it's the product that's being better utilized as well. So both are very important components.
So there's another component as well, and that is health, right?
Yes.
So COVID, made this like a big deal for you. So how does eliminating bottle confusion keep the consumer healthier?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, I mean, obviously we've all been through a period of time over the last 2 years that has been quite unique, but it's also brought certain things much more to the forefront of our minds as individual consumers as we go about our day-to-day lives. And it was, for us, it just happened to be something that really propelled what we were creating and creates meaningful implications long past whenever we're done with everything that's going on, because there's always the next and the next. And we're just more mindful now of trying to mitigate health risk in a reasonable way. It doesn't necessarily mean we need to be afraid of the world, but what are the reasonable day-to-day steps that we can take to eliminate unnecessary risk? And so from a health perspective, that's been a huge part of what All Scratch helps do, because like we talked about with waste and confusion and people typically leaving it, well, the reason often that they leave it is because, whether consciously or subconsciously, they don't want the increased or the heightened risk of grabbing the wrong one and picking up one that wasn't theirs, and maybe someone who had a cold coming on or this or that or sniffles or something had that. They don't want to subject themselves to the risk of introducing that. And that's actually the other white paper is sort of on this topic of, we've always in the past thought of this as being more of a, like when it comes to picking up germs and viruses, and it sounds kind of yucky to say, but it's the reality at the end of the day, is we always thought of it as more of a person to person kind of thing. If someone's sick and they interact with a person who isn't, then they'll get sick. But we've realized more, especially through the past 2 years, that objects and substrates and surfaces play a massive role in potentially transferring those things. And I think for most of us, it's probably more of a subconscious thing, but that's a driving force behind why we won't grab that bottle that even there's 10% of us that isn't of our mind that isn't sure whether that one is ours, and we'll just leave it. And it's
Right.
for those reasons. So that's how this has the health implication, is if you are taking those guesses, there is that heightened risk. So we're eliminating those things and just trying to, again, in like the way you introduced the Plus brand as a company that is just trying to create meaningful day-to-day solutions. It's about, hey, it doesn't necessarily need to be rocket science. It's about small, meaningful ways that we can improve our lives on a daily basis, reduce confusion in order to stay, like we say, reduce waste and stay healthy.
Right. Perfect. So let's talk about sustainability just generally, and where you think sort of sustainability trends are.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
when it comes to beverages, or when it comes to
sure,
whatever we talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably obviously a little bit biased given our bent on the way in which we are innovating on that side. So, but I think there's a lot more to be seen still in terms of smart packaging itself. And we kind of consider this to be in that category because it's using technology to improve the way we interact with products. And so I think smart packaging as a whole, and we see it a lot with QR codes, interactive labels, and different things like that. And that we have a QR code on our label where you can scan it and it'll immediately take you to a page where you can understand a little bit more about bottle confusion. But I think that smart packaging is really going to be an area in which we'll continue to see a lot of innovation. And I really, at the end of the day, I think we'll probably see substantially more in the next 5 years than we've seen even in the last 50, because it's front of mind for a lot of manufacturers right now. Because it's front of mind with a lot of consumers. And so we're seeing a lot of innovation happen, which is cool. It's cool how consumers really are the ones that drive that change. As they become more mindful of certain things, they demand change in the products, and then manufacturers adapt and adjust. And so it's really cool to see a lot of manufacturers putting this effort and these resources into improving the status quo. And that's really what makes particularly North America such a cool place to live, is it is very innovation driven because of the way that works. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. On the ingredient side, I think it's going to continue to be a trend towards cleaner alternatives. We're seeing obviously how a lot of the large soda brands are transitioning to various beverages that have components that sort of, one, not only do they have cleaner alternatives, whether it's an alternative to sweetening and different things that are more health conscious and more sustainable in the long term, but also combining different ingredients to drive more value for the consumer. So now, rather than taking this supplement and that supplement, you might be able to take a drink that has those plus one more in it. So there's a huge value component there and an efficiency component. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. And again, I think that's an area where we've seen a lot of incredible development over the last couple of years, and it's only going to be an exponential curve that we'll continue to see more and more of that over, like I say, the next 5-10 years. So we're excited to be a part of it and feel like we can maybe be a cog in that wheel that is driving some of that innovation. But certainly we're constantly inspired by other companies and brands around us that are doing the same.
I do. I also find it very inspiring myself, when I go and I visit with manufacturers and retailers and all the super innovative things that they're working on. So I totally.
And you would get to see so much of it with all the different brands that you're working with.
I know. I'm so lucky.
That's amazing.
And I'm lucky, just to talk to people like you who are also, working on such, inspiring and innovative things. So I get it. So last question, entrepreneurship, as someone who isn't from the industry, as you mentioned, any advice for other entrepreneurs who are looking to break through with a startup?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like we kind of talked about earlier on with the story and the comment that our lawyer made. There's this perception out there these days that big companies are supposed to happen a certain way. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, there's really never been a better time in history to be an entrepreneur. and to have avenues that you can leverage to try to create awareness of a cool innovation or a cool product. But at the same time, it feels like that's sometimes counterbalanced or pushed down by, it's like, well, you can innovate and you can be an entrepreneur, but you can only do so much. Stick to selling products on Amazon or on these different platforms. Don't try to create something that is really big. Leave that to the Elon Musks of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, all these kind of guys. And I think what is cool about the story that Chad and I have is it's a reminder that really at the end of the day, pardon me, it's a lot of BS. It's still very, very possible to do. We are not, Chad and I don't look at ourselves as somebody with some super unique skill set. I mean, we're good at certain things, but not well above and beyond the average person that's willing to work hard at something. The key difference has been that we were not willing to stop for any reason. And as an entrepreneur, you have to go into it eyes wide open, understanding that there will be 1,000,001 reasons every day why you should stop. And I'm not just talking about like hitting a wall on something not working. I'm talking about like, and this is maybe a conversation for another backstory podcast, but I'm talking about like the kind of stuff that leaves you questioning your existence and wondering what you're doing this for. And having a lot of times entrepreneurs, I've talked to so many people that deal with it too, from even friends and family and people in your close circle that are like, hey, why don't you just make your life a little bit easier? Why don't you stop trying to push this thing and just go do this, and it'll be easy and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, there's two things that I firmly believe in. One is that we only develop meaningful character and skill through difficult circumstances. So cue entrepreneurship. It's the perfect stage to build some meaningful, not just skill sets for your future endeavors, but character at the end of the day too. Work aside, we're all on a journey towards trying to become better people, improve ourselves for our friends, our family, our spouses, our kids, that sort of thing. And so entrepreneurship is, if you're willing to take that journey, is going to teach you a lot of those lessons. And so that's the first thing, is we need to kind of welcome, not welcome in that seek those circumstances out, but acknowledge that, you know what, there is meaning and purpose behind this. So I'm not going to be afraid of it, and I'm just going to tackle it head on. And if you can do that one piece, that puts you so much further ahead of most other people, because most people won't take that approach because it's uncomfortable. Right. But any of these big companies that we've seen that have grown, or even with ourselves, I mean, we're still constantly pushing and trying to grow bigger and get better. But to be where we are now is simply just a result of being willing to face those kind of circumstances and not willing to quit. But at the end of the day too, the second thing that I think is important, and which is what I love and appreciate about this type of a question, and maybe even these couple minutes to share my experience, is I think that at the end of the day, these experiences that we have going through these type of things and pushing through them, whatever they might be, a big part of the human experience is sharing those with other people. Because our difficulties that we go through, oftentimes they're not unique. They might be a little bit different. It's the timeline of them that's unique for people. So maybe I've just gone through something in building this company that opened my eyes to a lot of things that could be helpful for you with a business that you're starting, and your problems are the same, but our timeframes are different. I'm further along that time frame and experience those things that can be helpful or meaningful to a large group of people that then don't have to reinvent the wheel, or can shave a lot of corners where they don't have to go through some of the same things. And so that's what I love about platforms like this that you guys have, where you're picking the brains of different people that are doing really cool things in different industries, is they can share that kind of experience. And a lot of that connection and experience comes from sharing some of the difficult things too, because that's what at the end of the day people identify with. They don't identify with big success and an easy life. That's just not the reality for most people. And it's not the reality for most of the people that have arrived there now. That past 10 years was filled with all of the rest of the same kind of stuff that they had to, hurdles they had to overcome. Absolutely. So being able to take those things and share them with people and use that experience to help them along, I think is for myself and for Chad, I know it is an important part of the process, because there's so much meaning that can be found in that, and connecting with that, all that serves to do is drive you in the thing that you're doing as well, because there's a lot of fuel that comes from that. It feels good to be able to make meaningful contributions like that, and we're all looking to do that. So that really, at the end of the day, if I had to boil it down to, let's say, something really, really practical that someone listening to this could take, that's going through the difficult stages of a startup, and apply today and have it make a meaningful impact for them, it's probably, again, like I said, life is filled with 1,000,001 different things every day that you can't control. And you can try as much as you want, you will not be able to control them. But that doesn't mean that you need to let that take you into a tailspin of being depressed or anxious about it, because there are always little things that you can control. And that's my one piece of advice that I saw work over and over for myself on a daily basis. And I've shared it with other entrepreneurial friends building different companies, and they've shared with me that it's really made an impact for them too, is making a habit out of controlling those seemingly insignificant things on a daily basis that you can. For me, it was when everything is in chaos, when you're trying to build something and it feels like nothing's going right, what accentuates that feeling of being disappointed about it? Well, it's coming home to a house that is messy, or a car that's not clean, or feeling like I haven't done anything for my fitness for a long time. And now, on top of feeling like this isn't working, I feel like I'm being lazy and this and that. Well, what I found made a huge impact mentally for me to be able to face the things I needed to face and continue to push through them was controlling those little things, making sure I kept my car clean, not for anybody else other than me. I did it. I went out and I got it done, and I had a success and I had a victory. Making sure I kept my office clean, making sure, even if it wasn't a lot, that I did 10 minutes of something where I felt like I was, maybe it was some push-ups and a quick short little run or something like that, where
Right.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, but I felt like I accomplished something that gave me a small victory. And so I think that's probably, at the end of the day, the most important thing I could convey from a really practical standpoint is, when you're going through those periods of time where on the building side, it's tough and there's roadblocks, and there has to be, because that's what refines the idea to something that takes off and has success. So when you're going through that period and that window of time, it's take and create those little small victories that can give you the positive mental frame of mind to attack those other bigger challenges. So hopefully that is something that can be helpful for people that are listening, and make a meaningful impact on their journey as they're trying to build something exciting.
There is no doubt, Adam. Those are some incredibly valuable insights that you have shared. So thank you so much. So much.
Thank you, Gina. I always enjoy talking with you.
And thank you to everyone who watched us have this wonderful conversation.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.